The NFL draft is still just a little over 2 months away, but let's be honest, it's never too early to dive into this rookie class and start putting the pre-draft rankings together. I'm John Macri, joined as always by PFF's lead fantasy analyst, Nathan Jahnke. And for this episode of the PFF Fantasy Podcast, we will be going over Nate's top 10 rookie rankings, so we could kind of get a sense of who these players are and hopefully, begin to help you all sort your rookie rankings heading into the combine and beyond. So Nate, this is one of my favorite times of the year, diving into the new incoming fantasy assets and then trying to project how they'll perform in the NFL and whether or not they'll be worthy of our precious rookie draft picks. So how are you doing as we officially enter rookie season?
I'm doing well, excited to talk about these rookies. An interesting class we have this year. Last year we had a bunch of running backs and tight ends. This year we have a lot of wide receivers, so it does a nice job of balancing out last year's class.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll get into it, but some of the running backs and the tight end class definitely didn't live up to what they were last year or in previous years, right, with the tight ends. So we'll see how it shakes out. Obviously, you can never count these guys out or anything like that. A lot can change once they get to the NFL, but I'm definitely excited, like you said, about the wide receivers as well, and we'll definitely talk about a bunch of them today. But Nate has his full top 60 rookie rankings over on PFF.com right now. You can check out the full list there. If you're interested, head over to PFF.com and you can see the full list. But we're going to go over the top 10 today. If there's anything else over on PFF.com that you want to check out, any locked article content, anything else related to the NFL draft, the big board, mock draft simulator, all those kinds of things, player grades, you could get access to that with a PFF Plus subscription. All you got to do is use the promo code PFF Fantasy Podcast 25 and you'll get 25% off of that PFF Plus subscription. So if you're interested in any of that as we ramp up into NFL draft season, make sure you do that and use the promo code so you can save as well. All right, Nate, it's time to get into the rankings. The top 10 for now. I'm sure we'll dive in deeper as we get closer to the NFL draft, and then after that as well to see how things shake out. But let's start at the 101 for now. And I don't think there's too much contention in the ranks for most here at the top. Notre Dame running back Jeremiyah Love comes in as your current 101. So Nate, tell us about Love, and was there any hesitation, I guess, for you putting him at 1?
There was no hesitation. Today we are talking about single quarterback leagues, not superflex leagues. But even if we were talking about superflex leagues, Love would be number 1 for me. He's the clear-cut number 1 running back in the draft. I don't think any running back will be drafted within 50 spots of him at the very least when we get to draft day. So Love, the clear-cut player there. Expect him to go first half of the first round. We've seen a pretty consistent running backs that are drafted early doing well their rookie season and continuing to do well. Even Ashton Jeanty didn't quite live up to the expectations of where people were drafting him in ADP, but he was still running back 11 on the season. So even though he didn't do quite as well as we hoped in terms of fantasy production, still played well in terms of real life value. And so we expect Love to follow in those footsteps. The nice thing is if a team is drafting a running back that early, they're going to give him a lot of volume, and volume is the most important thing in fantasy football for running backs. So that has been a nice thing that you can rely on with those running backs drafted in the early first round. So we've seen some mock drafts. A lot of them he's going to the Saints. A lot of them he's going to Kansas City, both with top 10 draft picks. I'll be interested to see where he ends up. If he goes to Kansas City, I think that's very exciting. I think they could use a new running back. I think that can definitely help the offense. They score a lot of touchdowns on offense if the offense is doing well, so that could be a lot of touchdowns for the running back. We have to go back a couple of years before since we've seen a running back out of Kansas City really do well. And then the other landing spot, the Saints. Little concern there just because Alvin Kamara is still there. It's felt like that they should maybe give him some competition for a couple years now, and they just haven't really. To this point, we saw Kendra Miller get a little more involved this past year, but I would want them to move on from Kamara completely before I really trust Love 100% in his rookie season if he goes to New Orleans, just because if Kamara is still there, then Kamara is still likely seeing some of that value.
Yeah, those would both be really interesting. And I'm with you. I think, Kamara too, getting obviously near the end of his career. So I think it would make sense if Love did land there. He wouldn't be too much of a factor, at least not for very long, right? So, yeah, for me, Love, I mean, very clearly the 101. And you'll see the numbers up on the screen there for those of you watching up on YouTube. And I'll reference the numbers as well, because I'll talk about the prospect model and what it means for me, because as we go through the ranks here, I'll probably reference it quite a bit. And especially for the early part of like rookie evaluations for me, like I do lean on the model quite a bit before I get a chance to watch every single one of these guys. So yeah, I spent a lot of time putting it together and getting it where I wanted, to the point where the first year that I actually published the model results was last year. It'll be up there this week on pff.com as well for anybody interested. There will be running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. But for Jeremiyah Love, I mean, very clearly like the top consensus back in this class. And I think the model reflects that as well. Elite score for him, 9.29. He's just the fourth running back to score above 9 since 2017. And of those three previous running backs to score over 9, two of them, Bijan Robinson, Travis Etienne, have been top 3 overall fantasy scorers at the position in the NFL and have repeated as top 12 scorers across multiple seasons. The lone outlier is Ashton Jeanty. Nate, you mentioned RB11. I leave out week 18. I can't do it. He just came outside of that range in the weeks 1 to 17. He was RB13 in year 1, just outside that ideal top 12 mark. But regardless, like I don't think anyone, including myself, is counting out Jeanty after 1 year. He can absolutely cook in year 2 and beyond it, and be the top overall dynasty asset by this time next season. So no concerns there with Jeanty. I would definitely consider him a win still. But yeah, Love as a potential top 10 pick as well, like just elite metrics across the board. Joins a bucket of players who all scored above 8.5 in the model. All of the, let me see, 82% of them have finished top 12 so far in their NFL careers. And it really just checks a lot of the boxes that we're looking for in an elite running back prospect. Obviously, the draft capital helps, but 90th percentile mark in missed tackles forced per attempt, yards after contact per attempt, career rushing grade in specific situations as well. No slouch as a receiver as well. He earned a pretty strong 1.6 yards per route run for his career on 74 targets since 2023. Also pretty strong 79.2 career receiving grade. So yeah, I'm with you. I think he's a lock to be the 101 for dynasty rookie drafts, regardless of landing spot, regardless of it, whether it's a super flex league. I don't think his value is going to decrease from now until rookie draft time. So Jeremiyah Love, absolutely 101. On to 102 now, Nate. And this kicks off a run of wide receivers for you, starting with Ohio State's Carnell Tate. So what put him ahead of the rest for you?
Oh, yeah. Like you said, there's a number of wide receivers coming up, 3 of them expected to go in the first half of the first round of drafts. I think it's a really interesting wide receiver class in that these next couple wide receivers, there's some clear differences between them. So it'll be interesting to see which NFL teams like better. Tate is someone who's kind of projects to me to be a clear X wide receiver. And I think that's interesting in that there are 4 teams that are drafting in the top 10 that I think could use an X receiver, all of whom got rookie quarterbacks last year. And so we're looking to get those rookie quarterbacks some new weapons going forward. The Tennessee Titans, New York Giants, Cleveland Browns, New Orleans Saints. I think Tate fits nicely with any of those 4 teams, since, yeah, some of them have a wide receiver that they can also build around, but they don't necessarily need to be that X receiver type like Tate is. So we saw him produce at a high level at Ohio State. I think he can continue to do that in the NFL. So I think also, like, consensus wise, I think I've seen Tate as the wide receiver going earliest most often among various people. So that also helps me currently have Tate ahead, but a lot could change just based on where these guys end up actually getting drafted and where they end up getting drafted to.
Yeah, makes sense. And it's not like as clear cut, right, as like Jeremiyah Love over the rest of the running backs. Like I think Tate and some of the other wide receivers are actually pretty close, but you're right. Like he comes out of Ohio State, pretty strong profile. He had a career year in 2025, 89 receiving grade, 875 receiving yards, 9 receiving touchdowns. Interestingly, all of those came second to teammate Jeremiah Smith, though that is also like target competition we can live with Tate not overcoming. So yeah, that elite target competition it hurt, I think, a lot of Tate's like scoring like in the prospect model for anybody seeing that, and including, yards per route run, first down plus touchdown rate, target rate, all kind of coming in below the 70th percentile among prospects since 2019. But even some of the metrics like tied directly to Tate, including like his receiving grade, which was 69th percentile, missed tackles forced per reception, 37th percentile, explosive play rate, 65th percentile, yards after the catch, 26th percentile. They were all kind of, below average marks, I would say, but the score isn't perfect as some of the other receivers. Like maybe even in this year's class, there's a couple actually that do score better and pass receivers, but he's also not terrible. He lands kind of right in between Emeka Egbuka, a former teammate of his, and Drake London in the model. So yeah, if he's going to be a top 5 or even top 10 pick, like I think he's got a great chance. It obviously doesn't guarantee success. We've seen that with, still early for guys like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Rome Odunze. But there's still time for both of those guys as well, depending on landing spot, things like that. But he just, even if he's not an immediate hit, he's definitely somebody that's going to get a lot of opportunity. So deserved of our high end rookie picks as well. But yeah, I guess the thing is for me that there's probably another wide receiver who I like a little bit more, and is my wide receiver one. We'll talk about here right now, probably. So let's talk about 103, Nate, and another potential top 10 pick in the NFL draft. And for me is wide receiver one right now, Jordyn Tyson of Arizona State. What do you like about him as a top 3 rookie pick?
Yeah, like you said, you went over kind of the downside of some of these wide receivers that go very early, but we have seen a lot of upside for these wide receivers as well. We've seen in recent years, Ja'Marr Chase, Malik Neighbors both ended up as top 6 wide receivers in their rookie season. Other wide receivers like Jalen Waddle, Garrett Wilson, Ted McMillan, all became fantasy starters immediately and then continued to do well throughout their careers, or at least short careers so far. So I think there's a lot of options for these wide receivers. I think I am perfectly fine if you have this second rookie pick in drafts right now, trading back to 4, because I am happy to take a chance on any of these top 3 wide receivers. Tyson, I think, is capable of being an X receiver. We saw it a bit in college, but I think he kind of projects, at least to me, to be a little bit more of a Z receiver. So I'll be curious to see where he fits in with some of these teams. I think that would be excellent for a team like the Tennessee Titans or the Cleveland Browns, who are so in need of a wide receiver that they could use wide receivers at any spot. I think there could be a little bit of overlap if he ends up with the Saints or the Giants with Malik Neighbors or Chris Olave. So I'll be curious what they do there. I think it is interesting when you're trying to compare some of these metrics for wide receivers. When you have a wide receiver like Tate, who's at Ohio State, who does not need to be their offense. They have a great offense with all the position groups. And then you have someone like Tyson at Arizona State, who in a lot of ways was their offense. He's getting all of the targets and everything. So it's kind of hard to compare some of these players because they are different in how they're used in college. So like you said, like a lot of these metrics look great. And part of that is because he has a really high target rate as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he dominated the target share at Arizona State over each of the past 2 seasons, right? And that definitely led to that elite production across the board, right? And you mentioned Garrett Wilson before as well. He very similar numbers to Garrett Wilson coming out of college as well. Like Garrett Wilson scored a little bit better in the model, 9.18, but near identical career yards per route run marks. Garrett Wilson was 2.73, Tyson 2.71, receiving grades as well. Tyson 89.3, Wilson was 89.1, both of them potential top 10 picks. And yeah, like obviously if Tyson could translate to the NFL as well as Garrett Wilson, then we'll be getting a very quality prospect here worth investing in. But I think all signs do point to him, being a great bet, for fantasy potential, especially considering the bucket he falls into with some of the hit rates for the players. Talking about guys that score above a 9, 82% of those wide receivers have gone on to be top 12 PPR wide receivers in the NFL. 91% of them at least top 24, and all of them have been no worse than top 36. So, as of now, pre-combine, I think he's absolutely locked as a top 3 pick. Production, underlying metrics, like you said, didn't have the target competition. They are a little bit better than Tate's right now. Which kind of gives me the edge, especially since there isn't like an expected big gap in draft capital between the two either. But also, like you said, landing spot's going to play a part, right? But I think, just taking the two kind of at face value here prior to the draft, I think there's just a little bit more to like for me with Tyson. And again, yeah, Tate had the truly elite target competition. But again, I think a lot of those numbers that, he can control at least have me feeling like he's a little bit a part of the reason for that as well. But, and not just, Jeremiah Smith being who he is, but anyways, that's my process. I'm never going to be, so overconfident in my analysis to the point where I'll say any other ranking is wrong, because that's insane. We can't predict the future. But I think, as long as Tyson doesn't look or run like a walrus at the combine, then he'll stay, in that wide receiver one range for me heading into the NFL draft. We'll see how it goes. But there is another first round wide receiver, Nate, who I think also greatly impressed in terms of his underlying metrics. So we got another potential valuable fantasy asset, and definitely one that cracks the top 5 for our rookie rankings right now, Nate. Makai Lemon of USC.
Oh, yeah, I think he's a clear 4. I think there's a big gap between 4 and 5, where there isn't all that much gap for me, at least right now, between 2 and 4. Lemon, someone who I think is interesting in that he played a lot in the slot in college. We've seen other wide receivers who have been picked in the top 20 also play significantly in the slot. Drake London, Traylon Burks, Malik Neighbors, Emeka Egbuka, all of them were able to transition to playing on the outside, kind of at various levels of quality playing on the outside, but all of them were able to do it. Lemon is a little bit smaller than some of those players, so it'll be interesting to see where he gets drafted. I know in our most recent mock draft, he was the first wide receiver off the board, potentially to make a statement that Lemon should be at least among these top 3 wide receivers, because often in mock drafts, we're seeing him fall outside of that top 10 picks. So it'll be interesting to see where he lands. I think the Saints could be kind of an ideal option for me, because if he's playing in the slot there, we've seen with that head coach how much they valued slot receivers, even though Olave also played a decent amount in the slot and played well there. I think I think Lemon could thrive there, but if he does end up falling more into the middle parts of the first round, I think there are some landing spots that aren't as ideal. Places like the Baltimore Ravens, Minnesota Vikings, where they already have some clear top weapons in the offense, and Lemon would help make the offense a lot better, but it would be harder for him to have that high target rate needed to be one of these top potential wide receivers. So I think we do have plenty of landing spots where any of these wide receivers could end up as a top wide receiver in their offense pretty much immediately, and that really helped their fantasy value right away. But I think there's more potential landing spots that aren't as ideal for Lemon, which is partially why he's number 4 for me. But if we start finding out that he is very likely to go in those top 10 picks, then the gap between Lemon and the other two becomes much smaller for me.
Yeah, I think, 4 is definitely where I'd have him as well. Like, he did score the highest in the prospect model. He actually lands right in between CeeDee Lamb and Jackson Smith and Jigba. But like I like to point out in the articles, and I talk about a lot, like, I'm not using the model as like my concrete rankings, and I don't think anybody should. I'm purely using them as a guide to kind of understand which players have the best shot to succeed, while kind of helping to know which players I likely shouldn't value as highly. And Lemon at least stands out as one of the good ones that I'm happy to trust here as a top 4 pick, and obviously had a great 2025 season. He led the Power 4 conferences in receiving yards during the regular season, receiving grade as well, and for the most touchdowns, most receiving touchdowns, that is, with 11. So he's like you said, also the first of these first 3 wide receivers that we're talking about here that spent the majority of his career routes running out of the slot, at 76% of his snaps. It's not necessarily a negative in terms of his NFL potential, right? But again, depending on landing spot and how teams are going to use him. But there were other top performers in the model who scored a 9.2 or higher. Jalen Waddle, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Even Malik Neighbors spent 57% of his snaps out of the slot. And they've all found top 12 fantasy success in the NFL. So heading into the combine, there's nothing really that concerns me too much with Lemon as far as, the underlying key metrics go, that we should necessarily view as like a red flag for fantasy purposes. He scored no worse than 66th percentile in any one collected metric, and a lot of times is much, much higher than that. So I think, just considering the strength of the top of this wide receiver class so far, and I think the kind of lack of strength for the running back class, I don't think he's outside the top 4 for dynasty rookie drafts for me this year either. At least pre-draft, right? We'll see again how things shake out once we get landing spots and all that. But definitely an argument there for him to be within the first 3 to 4 picks for sure. All right, before we move on to the rest, I want to let everybody know that this episode is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook for live betting. It's making every snap, every drive, every moment of Super Bowl 60 count with DraftKings Live Millions, featuring over $5 million in prizes just for betting live. Here's how simple it is. Head to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, opt in, and receive a promo token. Place a live bet of $1 or more on the Super Bowl, and you're automatically entered. That's it. And every live bet means another shot to win. So you place a live bet and you stack your entries all Sunday long. Once the game wraps, DraftKings will randomly select prize winners. There will be more than 100,000 winners. Will you be one of them? We'll find out. So jump in, bet live, and let the entries roll for a shot at a share of over $5 million in prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code PFF. That's code PFF. Bet live for your share of $5 million in prizes with code PFF in partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org on behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas. Wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois, 21 plus in most states, void in Ontario. Restrictions apply, no purchase necessary, opt-in required, minimum odds minus 500. Prizes either bonus bets or single-use 20% profit boost, max bet $20 that expire in 30 days. See official rules for entry period and free method of entry, sponsored by Crown Gaming Inc. Let's round out the top 5 now, Nate, and it's another wide receiver for you. This time, Denzel Boston out of Washington, and another potential first-round pick. Tell us about this young feller.
Yeah, so I've seen a number of rookie rankings start to pivot back to running back a little bit here. I am pretty strong in keeping with the wide receivers just because we have seen a much better success rate of the wide receivers who go late in the first round compared to running backs we're expecting to go in the third round. Third round running backs have been a lot more iffy in recent years. We've seen plenty of these late first round wide receivers work out immediately. Jordan Addison, Brian Thomas Jr., and Mika Egbuka all played very well in their rookie seasons, ended up being fantasy starters, and then guys like Jackson Smith-Njigba, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, even if they didn't have quite as strong of rookie season, still ended up as fantasy starters at some point very early on in their careers, where running backs that have recently gone in the third round or so, Devin Achane has been the one clear hit. James Cook eventually emerged out of the group, but there have been a ton of running backs drafted in the third rounds in recent years. A lot of them have not worked out. Some guys like Trey Sermon, Velus Jones, Marshawn Lloyd, Caleb Johnson, basically with no fantasy value whatsoever. So I think it's a lot more risky to start looking at the running backs here compared to some of these wide receivers. And Boston is someone that I like among this group. He is someone who improved each year at Washington. He looks like a clear X receiver, and I think he's also found some significant success in those rare times that he did line up in the slot or did line up as a Z receiver. So that's kind of ideal for me as someone who, can be that clear top wide receiver on a team, but someone who can also line up in multiple spots and find success that way as well. So it would have been nice if he would have started his college career playing a little better as well, rather than just saving it all for the end of his college career. But I think he does have the potential to be a pretty strong weapon in an offense.
Yeah, I like Boston. He scores well in the model as well. He's also kind of like you said, kind of the first real drop off in quality, at least from that like top 5, group here. Like it's very clear, I think, between 4 and 5 that there is a gap here. But I don't think it's a significant like drop off. Like it's still, I think he's still a strong potential fantasy prospect. Probably, like kicking off that second tier of players, third, depending on if you have Jeremiyah Love in a tier of his own. But I think just the only real thing that kind of indicates the drop off for me is that the 2.02 career yards per route run, like you said, just kind of doing it all in the last season. That's the lowest score among 81 prospects to score 7.5 or higher in the model. But career yards per route run, that's a big one, right? At least within the model. And then we've seen that also be a key indicator to the NFL as well. But there have been receivers to overcome lower scores in that regard as well, right? Most notably, Brian Thomas Jr. just a couple years ago, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin. though they're also kind of the outliers, right? The good thing is that I think for Boston, there's no real other true red flags like in his key metrics. Pretty strong marks in other key metrics, including the elite 95.1 career receiving grade versus single coverage. Only Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, and Trey Harris have scored higher than Boston for their careers against single coverage coming out of college. But obviously, Chase and Smith finding fantasy success, and then we still kind of wait on Trey Harris there in year 2. But I think Boston, he should definitely be in the conversation with along with the top non-Jeremiyah Love running backs to be like the last pick for the top 5 picks in rookie drafts. Because for me, it is kind of between like him and RB2 in this class, but we'll talk about that in a sec anyways. But I definitely think he's worthy of the top 5 pick here among the rest. So but first we should talk about one more potential first round wide receiver, and you're 106, Nate. Kevin Casey Concepcion. What do you like about him?
He is someone who started his career at NC State playing more in the slot and then became more well-rounded at Texas A&M. So that was good to see him line up in a couple more spots. He is expected to go later in the first round, but one of the things for me is there's a couple really interesting landing spots for rookie wide receivers. The Buffalo Bills are one of those teams that are in need of a potential top wide receiver. So if the Bills are a team that drafts one of these 2 wide receivers, that could be huge. I think the 49ers are another team that could be looking to draft a wide receiver early, with Brandon Ayuk likely no longer with the team, with Juwan Jennings heading for free agency. And while there's a chance Jennings resigns, I think he could probably make a little bit more money elsewhere. So the salary cap situation for San Francisco could also lead them to get a wide receiver early. And yeah, they have Ricky Pearsall, but George Kittle might miss most or all of the season, depending on how long his injury recovery takes. So we could have a new top target earner in San Francisco. It seems unlikely that the Eagles are going to be able to trade away AJ Brown, but if they do, the Eagles are another landing spot who could need a wide receiver. But there's also some spots that aren't as exciting, like Pittsburgh or the Los Angeles Rams, other teams who could try to add a wide receiver, but probably wouldn't find as much fantasy success. So I think it's kind of going to be hit and miss. I think where the landing spot of these 2 wide receivers are could potentially move them out of the top 6 for me, just depending on the spot. But I think for that to happen, there would also need to be a running back who is drafted maybe a little earlier than expected and finding a good landing spot.
Yeah. I think, the fact that he could be a potential first round wide receiver is definitely the most intriguing part. Cause I do worry, like just looking at some of the numbers with him, he's kind of, at least for this top 5, like he's the least intriguing among those wide receivers. He too, like Lemon, he spent the most of his college career running out of the slot, though his first season here at Texas A&M was spent mostly outside. Right. But he's also, I think, the smallest first round wide receiver without official measurements. We don't know exactly yet, but he's probably likely to going to get more work in the slot in the NFL. And he just wasn't like overly effective in that role in college. Just a 1.83 yards per route run out of the slot. That's 34th percentile mark among all prospects since 2019. 74.7 receiving grade in the slot. That's 53rd percentile. So, the other concern for him is that he'll probably have to play some outside in the NFL as well. His overall career receiving grade, 77.8, is 25th percentile. Our yards per route run versus both press coverage. Both come in kind of well below average as well. Yards per route run and receiving grade versus press coverage, that is. So this was kind of the case with like a lot of other kind of highly drafted wide receivers who ran most of their routes out of the slot in college, including guys like Elijah Moore, Kadarius Toney, Tutu Atwell, Paris Campbell, KJ Hamler. All of them were no worse than round 2 picks, and they had to spend at least 30% of their NFL routes on the outside, and they did not deliver any fantasy value, and they struggled in that role in college as well. So there were similar red flags there. And not to say that will be the exact case for Concepcion. I honestly don't know how to say his last name, but that's how I'm going to say it. But yeah, okay. So yeah, it's enough of a concern to kind of highlight as just something for fantasy managers to be aware of, I guess, before maybe spending that top 6 or first round rookie pick on him. So Yeah, we'll see. Again, landing spot obviously matters so much. We keep saying that, but it's true. And we'll see where he lands. But for me, yeah, I kind of do like the running back. We'll talk about him here. Let's talk about Jonah Coleman. And yeah, honestly, this year's running back class, it does appear to be thin, right? So there's no surprise that there's only two of them in the entire top 10 here for you, Nate. So let's talk about Jonah Coleman, kind of the clear RB2 in this year's class.
I do have a third one in the top 10 we'll get to, but Coleman right now at 7, there's with a couple other running backs who are expected to go in the third round. Coleman has the tiebreaker for me in large part from a lot of the metrics from his grade. He's graded better both as a runner and as a receiver as the other running backs that are expected to go in the third round. He also has a lot more experience as a pass blocker, so that is encouraging to me, and that he will hopefully see more playing time than some of these other running backs early, because I know that's often a concern for rookie running backs early in their career. The interesting thing to me is his size. He is only 5'9", but weighs 228, at least according to his college numbers. We'll see what he ends up weighing at the combine, but we don't see running backs that are that short with that size in the NFL all that often. Doug Martin's the one guy that I kind of compared him to in terms of his size in the NFL, and the only other running back that's similar to that that's found significant success in the last 20 years. So it'll be interesting to see how he fits into an offense, but I could also see someone of that size maybe not having a full-time role immediately in the NFL, but at least having a role at the goal line, so hopefully scoring some of those touchdowns, but also being able to score those touchdowns and having the receiving work is something that is very helpful for a rookie receiver or rookie running back. So I think if there's any of these running backs who can find some immediate success in the NFL, I think Coleman's that guy, but a lot will depend on these landing spots. And we've seen plenty of running backs go in rounds 3 or 4 who, yeah, we like them heading into things, but then they're an immediate third running back on the depth chart, not much room to move up. So there's a chance that a team just likes Coleman, who already has some good running backs, and that could really hurt his value.
Yeah, and he's right there, right? He's right on the fringe of like the end of the second round, early third round. It's constantly changing every time I check. And I don't know. I feel like he could ultimately end up in the second round, near the end of the second round, just because the running back class is so thin, and he's very clearly like kind of the next best option after Jeremiyah Love. I mean, obviously depends on how teams view him, but if you're a running back needy team, maybe they'll take a swing on him. Not that there's many running back needy teams, but he at least stands out as like one of the best pure runners in the class. He's earned no worse than an 86.7 rushing grade across each of his past 4 seasons at both Arizona and Washington. So over 3,000 career rushing yards, a pretty efficient 5.5 yards per carry for his career. The hit rate bucket for him, as far as the model score, it's pretty strong. 50% of a possible 24 pass running back prospects achieve top 12 success so far. 92% finishing no worse than top 36. So if teams invest an early second round pick or a second round pick in him, period, I think his chances increase for sure. There's plenty of time for him to, I think, improve his kind of standings, either with a strong combine or teams just naturally moving him up their boards, just given, again, the lack of high-end backfield prospects outside of him and Love. So I don't think it would be a surprise to ultimately see him land in the second round of the NFL draft, but also third round also makes perfect sense as well, especially for the position. But there's still potentially wide receivers, I think, who are going to be a lot more going in the top 5. But I think he's right there at 6 for me. Like, I think that's kind of where I'm looking at. I think I like him a little bit better than Concepcion right now. Just based on the numbers purely, but again, landing spot can change all of that as well. But yeah, kind of like Jonah Coleman a fair bit here too. Before we finish out the rest of the top 10, I want to let you know that our game plan of the week is presented by Western and Southern Financial Group, a game plan for your financial future. And obviously we're talking, in the off season right now, we're planning for our rookie drafts and dynasty rankings, all of that kind of stuff. We're already doing our early prep for a potential 2026 fantasy championship. So you should too. That is kind of our game plan right now. And that's what this time of year is really all about for fantasy purposes. So make your own own game plan, whether that's in beginning very early prep for a 2026 championship or for life in general. Just like every team win starts with a great game plan, Western and Southern helps protect you and your family so you could focus on winning today, knowing tomorrow is covered. Whether you're just starting out, building your dynasty, or looking to lock in long-term protection, their coverage options are designed to match your game plan. Visit westernsouthern.com/PFF, get your free life quote, and start building your financial game plan today. Western and Southern, built to win, backed by over 130 years of helping people protect what matters most. Okay, let's keep rolling here. On to the 108, Nate, where we get our first non-running back or wide receiver. As tight end one for you, Nate, is the lone first-round tight end, Mr. Kenyon Sadiq. Tell us about what's got him cracking the top 10 for you.
First off, there's no Brock Bowers in this class. There's no Tyler Warren. There's no Colston Loveland. There's no tight end quite of that quality. The one thing I like about him is that he is expected to go in the first round. I have seen at least some mock drafts where he falls out of the first round, but even those tight ends going in the early second round, typically they've found success in the NFL. We've seen a couple of guys either going in the first or expected to go in the first the past couple of years. All of them have found some level of fantasy success. He's more like the Brock Bowers, Loveland, Pitts, and Kincaid, a little bit shorter of a tight end, but he's also a clear receiving tight end, not quite like Michael Mayer or Tyler Warren, who are a bit more well-rounded. So playing time could be at least a slight amount of concern. Because he's on the shorter side, there's that concern, but also some of his metrics, I don't think, compared to some of these other tight ends that we've seen go in the first round. I think the big thing with him is his athleticism. So that is kind of more of a projection than some of the other wide receivers we've seen, and that he didn't quite produce in terms of his receiving grade, his yards per route run compared to some of these other tight ends. And then also it's just unclear what his landing spot will be and how successful he'll be in that landing spot. A lot of the teams that I've seen him go to are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Philadelphia Eagles, with Cade Otton and Dallas Goedert both heading towards free agency. But both of those teams also have a number of wide receivers. They also have running backs. So he can be a part of the offense, but he'll need to be someone who's either first or second on the team in targets for him to be a fantasy starter in his rookie year. So I'm not sure if he'll get that. So his landing spot could play a big role in where he ends up. I considered him higher up, 6th or 7th, maybe, if he lands in the right spot, but also he would need to follow through with his athleticism and produce more than what we were seeing in college necessarily. So there's also a chance he ends up lower than this if he ends up in a landing spot that's not as ideal, and some of these other running backs or wide receivers end up in more ideal landing spots.
Yeah, he's really interesting. I mean, the tight end class as a whole is interesting. It's not like we've had the past couple years, but there's a pretty wide gap in expected draft capital between him and the next closest player at his position, right? And even with that in mind, the prospect model, it still took his data, spit out just the second best score among the tight ends in this year's class. If you want to see who the first is, you'll have to check out the article that's coming out later this week. But still a strong mark, right? It was 92nd percentile going back to 2018 as far as his model score. Comes in right behind Trey McBride, just ahead of Mark Andrews. So it's not an amazing score, but the company around him is at least encouraging, especially considering he'll potentially own the highest draft capital of the three of those names as well. But like you said, what pushes him down is a lot of his receiving metrics don't really come anywhere close to the top tight ends of years past, right? Where guys like Brock Bowers and Loveland and Warren and Laporta, they all earned 90 plus receiving grades coming out of college, where Sadiq is by far the lowest of that bunch. 73.7 career receiving grade would be the lowest mark among first-round tight end prospects since Hayden Hurst in 2018, which is also true of his 1.72 career yards per run. That would also be the lowest since Hayden Hurst, right? So, as far as, tight ends who scored between 7.5 and 8.0 and also had sub-80 career receiving grades, we're kind of looking at guys like Ben Sinnott, Luke Schoonmaker, Greg Dulcich, and Mike Gesicki. So, there's probably more confidence, I'd say, in Sadiq because of his expected draft capital. So he still has a good shot to succeed, but we've kind of been blessed by an abundance of elite rookie tight ends as of late. I think expectations probably be at least a little tempered for Sadiq in year one, at least. All right, let's keep it going here. And we will talk more about this running back class now, because at 109, we have Jadarian Price, also out of Notre Dame. And for me, kind of the poster boy for why we should have concerns about the rest of this running back class, because he's like the pretty consensus RB3. And I don't think he'd be anywhere near that spot in past classes. Again, doesn't mean that he can't / won't succeed in the NFL, but all we could do right now is evaluate their college careers and potential draft capital and decide if we trust them to hit at the next level. But Nate, how do you feel about RB3 here? Is the price right, I guess?
I think he's definitely an interesting prospect, having had to compete with Love at the running back spot. Clearly not as experienced as plenty of these other running backs, especially in the passing game, was barely involved there. So I think it's going to be hard to project him a little bit that way. The big thing that helped secure a top 10 spot for me is his athleticism. Seeing some of the tracking data on him and how he compares to some of the other running backs, really good in terms of change of direction, terms of acceleration, in terms of speed. So I think he's capable of being a great running back, but we need to actually see it in an offense. So it'll be interesting to see which team takes the chance on him. I could see him having to maybe wait a little bit longer in terms of when he starts seeing playing time, because he wasn't getting that playing time in college. But also on the flip side, he could be a little fresher than some of the other running backs who had to work a lot in college. So that could be something in his favor. So I think he's a really high risk, high reward kind of player, someone that maybe works out in a great way in the NFL, maybe someone who doesn't work out at all in the NFL, but just a wide range of possibilities, which really, once you get to this point of the draft, you're going to see a wide range of possibilities. So maybe not quite as deep or as deep of a class in terms of that elite talent, since I feel like in last year's we could be a little bit more confident about the players we were talking about going 9th in rookie drafts. But I also think there's a lot of depth of players that could end up working out. So I think there's going to be more guys in the 3rd round, 4th round of these drafts who do end up working out. It's just, you're going to be less confident about it. So if you have the 9th pick in the draft, maybe feel free to trade back now, maybe pick up some more picks if you have room on your roster rather than sticking at 9. So if you're in these dynasty leagues, I'm fine making some trades now with a lot of unknowns, because we do know that whoever is 9th, we're not going to be super confident about.
Yeah. And even with price, like his expected NFL draft capital is constantly changing. I have 71st overall, because that's what it was when I made the card the other day. As the expected draft capital, I just looked it up. He's moved all the way up to 59th overall, right? So it just bounces around. I wouldn't be surprised if he still stays like in round 3, but that's going to put him on most fantasy radars anyways, being a day 2 running back, right? But he's got this weird, he's got weird career metrics, right? He has this elite mark as far as yards after contact per attempt, but like his missed tackles forced per attempt, and his numbers against a stacked box as well are also really poor. So kind of weird, like, again, didn't get a ton of touches behind Jeremiyah Love, but I think he could be a good example, I think, to the point where he scored, I don't know. I won't say it, but he lands, I guess, if he lands in a situation where he has a shorter path to snaps, I think where, again, those opportunities are still rare, especially for potential round 3 picks. Like he'll have a better chance, obviously, but being that kind of fringe top 10 pick in rookie drafts, I think a lot of his underlying metrics and prospect score, he's going to probably be outside the top 10 for me, just as of right now, like before landing spot. But I think, honestly, and I'm with you, I think anybody picking anywhere outside the top 5 or 6 right now, I think the move is to trade out, like whether that's to accumulate 2027 picks or maybe like a legit fantasy starter that you can use this season. I'm definitely going to take those swings instead. Like if you can, obviously, if it's not, it's not the worst thing in the world if you can't, but maybe you can try to grab multiple seconds in this class as well. Grab some of maybe the higher scores in the model, for instance, whether that's at wide receiver or tight end. There's still some good ones out there who will go later than these guys, and I'd feel good about taking shots on them at a lesser cost. But the main thing for me, I think, would be to try to use those mid to late first round picks this year for 2027 picks, or at least a startable fantasy asset to help you win this year. So that's kind of where I'm at with Love and a lot of these later guys here, because I'm not interested in them enough to spend the rookie picks. And if I can cash out, I would try to do that now. All right, one more player to finish up the top 10, Nate. And it's no surprise that it's another wide receiver. So tell us about Chris Bell out of Louisville.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of wide receivers that are expected to go in the second round of drafts. Roughly 11 running backs or wide receivers expected to go in the first or second rounds. It's interesting in that second round, wide receivers really have not had that high of a hit rate these past couple years. There were 5 wide receivers selected in the second round in 2021. None of them turned out to be consistent fantasy starters. 2022, 2023, it's been roughly a 50% hit rate. Half of the 2024 class already on new teams, and Coleman could potentially follow suit there. So the 2024 class hasn't looked all that great. And then in 2025, we did have Jaden Higgins and Luther Burden, who were very early second round picks, and they showed at least a decent amount of promise, even if they didn't necessarily turn into fantasy starters in their rookie season. So we'll see how their careers turn out. But Chris Bell, he is someone who is notably higher on our big board than consensus ranks. So part of this for me is kind of trusting our draft guys to like Chris Bell here. It is worth noting that he did suffer an ACL injury in November, so Bell might be a little limited early on in his career, but he is someone that kind of stood out for his work after the catch, even if he didn't have as high of a catch rate or target rate as we would like to see, but he did do some nice work after the catch. Nice job making some explosive plays when he did get the ball in his hands. So it'll be interesting to see if that can continue on in the NFL once he's healthy.
Yeah, it's kind of a crowded later group of wide receivers too for me. And yeah, Bell, I don't know, probably someone that I don't like maybe as much as like an Elijah Surratt out of Indiana, or even like Chris Brazel out of Tennessee, like other the potential second round guys that could hit. Part of it is, again, just some of the numbers that I was been relying on. He scored below a 7, at least as far as the pre-combine model score. And it's a pretty significant number because only 3% of players to also score lower than 7 have ever cracked the top 12 as far as fantasy finishes go. And it's a lot of past day 2 picks in there as well, including guys like Mecole Hardman, Jalen Hyatt, Jalen McMillan, Brian Edwards, Tyquan Thornton, Jalen Polk, Anthony Schwartz, Miles Boykin, Amari Rogers, Lynn Bowden, Keon Coleman. You get the point, right? Like there's obviously outliers in there as well. And a great one in Nico Collins, even DK Metcalf, a one-time top 12 finisher, Terry McLaurin as well. But the point being is that there are a lot more misses and plenty more day 2, even round 1 examples like Xavier Legette, who I didn't name, right? So that scares me when I see that, when I see him as a potential first round pick, in rookie drafts. I don't know. I'm probably not going to value him that high. Like, again, I'm happy to trade that pick away, or if I can just pivot to another player. Just too many below average key metrics for me: 45th percentile career yards per route run, 48th percentile receiving grade, 46th percentile career first down touchdown rate, 35th percentile target rate. Like a lot of the numbers that translate best to the NFL, he just doesn't check those boxes. Again, it doesn't mean he can't hit in the NFL. I just think, again, combined with the injury too, like I think his odds are significantly lower. And since this is a game of chance, right, it being a much bigger factor when it comes to rookies, like that's not a chance I'm willing to take right now. But we'll talk more about some of the other rookies that maybe I do like in future episodes. But yeah, plenty of time still to get that all sorted. But yeah, for now, that's our top 10. So thank you all for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review. We'd greatly appreciate that. Nate, please do let everybody know what you've been working on so that they can read that over on pff.com.
Yeah, so like you said, we have the Dynasty Top 60. So if you want to look at where some of these other players land, plenty of wide receivers from 11 to 20, a couple running backs in there as well as Mendoza. Like you talked about, maybe trading away some of those draft picks early. I also have the Dynasty Rankings article out with all these rookies in them. So if you want to see where I'm valuing these rookies compared to players currently in the league to figure out what you might want to trade for, the Dynasty Rankings are also out. I have been going week by week with position rankings, tight ends, we're at this week. Wide receivers will be next week. Also went through some of the free agents and where some of my favorite landing spots for those free agents are. So if you want to see where I think some good fits for the running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, that also went out late last week. So that's what I currently have.
Love it. Yeah, for me, I've written up the rookie model articles talking about running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. Those will all be out this week, and then quarterback and the IDPs still to come in the weeks ahead. So if you're interested, you can check those out and see where some of the other options in this year's class land, at least pre-combine, and then we could get some of the official athletic testing data, and as expected draft capital changes, I'll update that again next month and add more deep dives for players in there as well. And then I'll probably do one more update to it post draft to show where the guys officially stand, as everything will be locked in by then. But I love the rookie stuff. I can get very nerdy with it. So if you feel the same way, please do check out those pieces because it's a lot of fun. But anyways, we'll be back next week. So thank you to everybody for tuning in. And until next time, peace out.